in medieval times, people didn't use plates. They used this. This is what's known as a trencher. Normally, it would be a big, dried out piece of bread that they would put their slop into, because back in medieval times, everybody's just basically eating slop or soup or some sort of stew. Very little meat, if any. Maybe it's just going to be some boiled barley or something like that. You're going to dump it all up in this dried out piece of bread. And then once the bread gets soggy enough, then you're going to eat it. Time went on and maybe you were a little bit wealthier, you would have a piece of wood. This is where the cheese boards come into play, where we have this continuation, as well as the trencher, which is just like a big plate. Whether they were rich or poor, they just had a big piece of bread, and it was an old stale piece of bread that they just planned on using for a plate. Now, if they were rich and they didn't want to eat that crap, they would throw it outside to all the peasants, because that'd be their alms to the poor. And then if you had no money or very little money, you would eat it. Kind of like a soup bowl nowadays, except this isn't quite right, because there'd basically be no meat. There'd be no meat. You're a poor peasant. You're lucky that you have some barley, you have some bread. Maybe you would have had some salmon, depending on the season, or some other type of thing, but it's not going to be the amount of meat, especially that we're consuming today. Nowhere near that. Also, potatoes were from the New World, so medieval peasants wouldn't have had those. So like I was saying, the rich people, they would start using wood, or eventually they'd have pewter, and that would be their plates. And then nowadays, we now use plates because of that period of time. And so if you were a rich person, you were going to be using something besides bread, which kind of reminds me of a roommate I had in college, that he used his iPad as his plate. The man basically never used a plate. He just had his iPad. It didn't matter if it was like a greasy piece of pizza, it was some eggs, he had a cheesy burrito, whatever it was, just right onto the iPad, just pure insanity. And that was the least weird thing about that guy.